Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us once again on our channel where we dive deep into the unbelievable world of rare coins, shocking valuations, hidden treasures, and everyday pocket change, and the mind-blowing stories behind pennies that look ordinary but secretly carry life-changing value. And today we are stepping into one of the most mysterious, confusing, and highly discussed coins ever produced by the United States Mint, a coin that has sparked endless debates, triggered intense collector competition, and shocked the coin world with stories of specimens selling for unbelievable prices. And that coin is the 1982 1 cent, a seemingly common Lincoln penny that almost all of us have handled thousands of times in everyday transactions, yet a very rare subset of these coins is rumored to have values reaching as high as $9 million because of extremely specific errors. Transition anomalies, minting mistakes, composition confusion, size inconsistencies, weight differences, and rare die variations, all coming together to create one of the most complicated and intriguing coin years in U.S. history. And in this monumental deep dive, we are going to take you on a non-stop, breathless journey through every detail of what makes certain 1982 pennies worth huge money, why this particular year has more varieties than almost any other year of U.S. 1 cent production, how collectors identify the valuable ones from the common ones, what specific physical characteristics can turn an ordinary penny into a multi-million-dollar treasure, and what unusual circumstances surrounding the U.S. Mint in 1982 helped produce these rare and extremely sought-after mistakes. And to do that, we're going to start by exploring the unforgettable story of why the 1982 penny stands alone as the year of confusion. A year when the Mint switched from the old 95% copper composition that had been used for decades to the new copper-plated zinc composition that drastically changed the weight, thickness, durability, and general appearance of the 1 cent coin. And because this transition was not instant but rather spread across the year with different facilities experimenting, testing, mixing designs, adjusting dies, refining metal planchets, and altering production timelines, the result was a chaotic mixture of coins with multiple combinations of large and small date designs, copper and zinc compositions, die states, planchet conditions, and striking results. Meaning that within the same year you can find 1982 pennies weighing 3.11 grams made of copper, others weighing 2.5 grams made of zinc, some with a large date layout featuring thicker numerals, some with a small date design featuring thinner, more refined digits, and then the rarest of the rare specimens where these features cross improperly, where the wrong metal was used for the wrong die, where transitional mistakes occurred, where experimental strikings slipped into circulation, and where the Mint's attempt to keep up with rapidly changing metal costs resulted in mismatched dies being paired with mismatched planchets, creating the perfect storm for extremely valuable error coins that collectors dream of discovering. And if you understand this chaos, then you can begin to understand why a properly authenticated transitional era 1982 penny could realistically achieve multi-million-dollar valuations at elite coin auctions, especially when you consider how few of these mistakes have been confirmed, how controversial and mysterious some rumored pieces are, and how the 1982 minting process has remained one of the most fascinating subjects for advanced numismatists who continue studying this year decades later, hoping to uncover more truths hidden in the details of each variety. And as we continue exploring what makes these coins so valuable, we need to dive deeper into the transition itself, where the U.S. Mint, facing rising copper prices that made the penny's metal worth more than its face value, urgently switched the composition mid-year to a cheaper copper-plated zinc planchet, and this major shift is where the trouble began, because during this transition the Mint had to manage existing copper planchets while introducing new zinc ones, all while updating dies for large and small date variations, and as copper planchets overlapped with new zinc planchets and multiple dies were moved, replaced, or retooled, some unexpected combinations were produced, including the legendary 1982 D small date copper penny, which should not exist at all because by the time the small date design was used at the Denver Mint, the copper planchets were supposed to be completely phased out, yet one or more copper specimens somehow survived and escaped into the world, creating a coin so rare that a genuine example could easily reach $9 million or more at auction due to its unprecedented rarity, historical significance, and transitional anomaly. And while this particular Variety is the most famous. It isn't the only valuable one because the 1982 penny also includes error types such as double-die obverse mistakes where the date, Liberty inscription, or motto appear doubled because of a misaligned hubbing process, broad-struck errors where the coin was struck outside the collar causing a wider and flatter appearance, off-center strikes where part of the design is missing due to misplacement of the planchet, die cracks where raised lines form across the surface because the die fractured under pressure, lamination errors where layers of the metal peel or separate creating unusual textures, strike-through errors where foreign objects or debris interfere with the striking process leaving permanent imprints, and transitional composition errors where the wrong metal was used for the year's intended standards. And while many of these errors exist in other years too, their value skyrockets in 1982 because the year was already unstable and full of experimental features, meaning any error that adds even more unusual characteristics becomes dramatically amplified in desirability and value, and collectors around the world specifically hunt these 1982 variations because they understand how chaotic the process was and how many possibilities remain undiscovered, especially when casual coin users don't realize the importance of weighing the coin, analyzing the date style, inspecting the mint mark, and comparing the metal tone, because these simple steps can reveal shocking surprises. For example, many zinc pennies develop bubbling, corrosion, or surface irregularities because zinc is highly reactive. And while some of these are environmental issues, others can be genuine mint-related plating errors that produce unusual textures or blisters, making them collectible. And when examining rare errors, you must also consider the die deterioration of the period because zinc planchets were harder on the dies than copper, meaning some dies wore out faster, producing weaker strikes, distortions, or anomalies that today become clues for identifying early die states, late die states, or rare varieties. And every small detail matters when evaluating whether a 1982 penny has the potential to become a multi-million-dollar treasure, especially when considering that some rare varieties are known only from photographs, rumors, or unconfirmed reports, with collectors believing more could be hidden in old jars, inherited collections, savings banks, or forgotten containers stored away for decades. And because millions of 1982 pennies remain unsearched across the country, the possibility of discovering a rare piece is very real, meaning the next life-changing find could come from someone casually checking their change or dumping a jar of old coins onto a table and spotting something slightly different about the weight, the shape of the numbers, the sound when dropped, or the color of the metal. And all of this unknowable potential is one reason why the value of rare 1982 pennies continues to climb in the numismatic world as collectors seek to complete sets of all 8 major varieties from the year and then expand into the dozens of minor variations and errors that can exist. And when you add the excitement, the mystery, the transitional chaos, and the fact that the average person can still stumble upon one of these rare pieces in circulation, it becomes clear why the market places astounding value on the best examples, with top-grade transitional errors easily entering 6-figure and 7-figure territories and truly unique, historically significant anomalies achieving valuations in the millions, possibly even around the legendary $9 million mark if the coin is a previously unknown major transitional error, such as a small date copper from the wrong mint, or a unique die variety created during the metal switchover. And collectors are willing to pay such enormous prices because beyond the metal and the design, these coins represent a frozen moment in U.S. minting history, a moment when pressure, demand, inflation, and rapid changes forced the mint into producing coins under stress, experimentation, and uncertainty, conditions that often produce the rarest and most valuable mistakes, making the 1982 penny one of the most thrilling and emotionally compelling treasures for coin hunters, historians, and investors alike. And the more we study this year, the more possibilities emerge as new research, improved testing tools. Next, 1961 1-cent coin, a coin that in normal circumstances would be considered extremely common because tens of millions were produced at the Denver Mint, yet a tiny handful of extraordinary specimens containing ultra-rare errors, bizarre minting mistakes, freak die conditions, and unusual planchet anomalies have been at the center of numismatic legends, whispered among advanced collectors and speculated about for decades, with certain unique examples rumored to have reached jaw-dropping valuations surpassing $23 million due to their rarity, Historical significance. I appeal in the fact that the 1961 year hides some of the most unusual proof-like business strikes, doubled dies, transitional anomalies, metal contamination errors, and die variety mysteries ever associated with a pre-1965 Lincoln cent. And to understand why any 1961 D penny could be worth such staggering amounts, we need to dive deep, extremely deep, into the bizarre and intricate minting environment of the early 1960s, a period when the U.S. Mint was rapidly expanding production due to rising national demand, handling enormous quantities of planchets and dies, frequently adjusting machinery, and pushing output to the maximum, conditions that often produced stress on equipment and allowed unusual errors to slip past inspection. And the 1961 D issue is especially fascinating because its production run contains numerous varieties, including repunched mint marks where the D was punched multiple times into the die, leaving shadows, splits or doubling around the mint mark, dramatic die cracks spreading across Lincoln's bust or the fields like tiny raised lightning bolts, off-center strikes caused by planchets positioned incorrectly, broad-struck coins missing the collar imprint, clipped planchets where small curved pieces of metal are missing from the rim because of misfed strip cutting, and more exotic anomalies like die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies hit each other without a planchet between them, transferring ghost-like impressions across the coin's surface. And while many of these errors are collectible at moderate values, the truly life-changing multi-million-dollar 1961 D pennies belong to an extremely narrow category of ultra-rare errors, coins born from freak circumstances, 1 in a billion events, transitional material accidents or production quirks that theoretically should not exist at all. And one of the most intriguing concepts is the possibility of a 1961 D penny struck on a wrong metal planchet, such as a leftover silver dime planchet, a foreign coin blank, or a copper-nickel experimental material that accidentally mixed into the hopper. And because the U.S. Mint handled foreign coinage and experimental strikes during certain periods, highly unusual planchets sometimes found their way accidentally into circulation coins, resulting in wildly rare minting events that today can command prices far beyond what anyone would expect. And collectors have long speculated that unconfirmed examples of 1961 D pennies struck on non-standard planchets may still exist somewhere in the world, buried in old jars, inside inherited estates, stored in bank envelopes untouched for decades, or sitting unnoticed in massive bulk bags of pennies that no one has fully inspected, and if any authenticated one-of-a-kind examples surfaced, especially in pristine condition with full mint-red luster, sharp details and flawless surfaces, it could realistically achieve valuations reaching or exceeding the staggering $23 million mark because the combination of rarity, historical importance, unexpected minting anomaly, and the enormous collector demand for early Lincoln cent rarities would ignite fierce competition at major auctions, pushing the value into territory that only the rarest coins in the world have ever reached. And aside from planchet mistakes, the 1961 D penny is also associated with some extraordinary die varieties such as double die, obverse coins where the date, Liberty, or In God We Trust show clear doubling due to misalignment during the hubbing process. And while no major double die 1961 D penny has been officially recognized on the level of the famous 1955 or 1969 S, experts acknowledge that previously unknown double dies still occasionally surface from old collections, meaning the possibility remains that a dramatic and heavily doubled 1961 D example could one day be discovered, and if such a coin features bold, unmistakable doubling visible to the naked eye in high mint state condition, it could instantly become one of the most valuable pennies ever, potentially rising into the multi-million-dollar category depending on the intensity of the doubling and the coin's overall state of preservation. And speaking of preservation, the 1961 D issue also includes extremely rare fully full-strike satin-like specimens with deep reflective surfaces created unintentionally when unusually fresh and highly polished. Dies were used early in a die's lifespan, producing coins that look almost proof-like despite being intended for circulation. And these rare early die state strikes are extraordinarily desirable because they stand out sharply against normal production pieces, featuring blazing brilliance, crisp details, and eye appeal comparable to the finest collector-grade coins. And when such a coin also contains a rare error or die variety, its value multiplies exponentially because collectors pay enormous premiums for coins that combine rarity with beauty. And another reason the 1961 D penny reaches staggering valuations is the existence of certain mint mark anomalies, including RPMs, repunched mint marks, where the D appears doubled, tripled, or shifted due to hand punching inconsistencies. And while many RPMs are moderate value varieties, a spectacularly sharp, dramatic, and perfectly preserved RPM in a flawless high grade could generate bidding wars, especially among specialists who collect early Lincoln varieties. And when you add the possibility of misaligned dies, rotated dies, reverse design weakness, strike-through grease errors, foreign object strike-throughs, retained interior die breaks, and unusual metal flow lines created by overpolished dies, the number of potentially valuable 1961D varieties becomes immense. And although most examples remain common and worth only face value, the tiny fraction of extraordinary specimens becomes astronomically valuable because rarity, mystery, and historical oddities always dominate the upper reaches of the numismatic world. And what makes the 1961D story even more compelling is the fact that millions and millions of these coins still exist in basements, storage boxes, forgotten piggy banks, childhood collections, inherited jars, and random accumulations across the country. Meaning that some of the most valuable coins in American history might still be hiding in completely ordinary places, waiting for someone with curiosity and knowledge to recognize what others overlooked. And the idea that a life-changing $23 million penny might be sitting quietly in a jar somewhere adds a layer of suspense and excitement that keeps collectors searching relentlessly, examining every date, every mint mark, every surface detail, and every unexpected feature in hopes of discovering the next great rarity. And because numismatic research continues to evolve with better microscopes, metal composition analyzers, and specialized grading knowledge, new varieties continue to be identified even today, making the 1961D penny not a closed chapter but an open treasure map filled with possibilities, mysteries, and potential breakthroughs. And every year collectors uncover previously unknown die cracks, mint mark repunchings, minor doubled dies, and unusual striking anomalies that were never catalogued in earlier decades, raising hope that a truly monumental find, a once-in-history anomaly worth tens of millions, may still surface, and when that moment comes it will rewrite the value hierarchy of Lincoln cents, reshape numismatic history, and demonstrate once again how even the most ordinary-looking old penny can turn out to be an unbelievable treasure with a story more dramatic than anyone could imagine. Which is exactly why the 1961D 1 cent, under certain rare and extreme conditions, is discussed in numismatic circles as a coin with the astonishing potential value reaching as high as $23 million. Next, 1981 cent coin, a coin that most people would consider ordinary and nearly worthless in everyday circulation, yet under the right circumstances, with the right combination of errors, minting anomalies, metal irregularities, or early die state features, certain 1980 pennies have been whispered among advanced numismatists to reach unreal valuations as high as $9 million. And when you begin to unpack the story of the 1980 penny, you discover a fascinating world of minting quirks, transitional die conditions, aging equipment, and highly unusual error possibilities that all contribute to making this year an extraordinary case study in how a penny can become a fortune. And before we dive into the specific mistakes that make the 1980 penny so valuable, we need to understand that 1980 was a year on the edge of change. Positioned right before the major 1982 transition from copper to zinc, meaning the mint was already facing intense pressure, rising metal costs, and enormous demand for coinage. And as machinery aged and dies were pushed to their limits, unexpected minting events occurred, creating the types of rare errors that today can transform a simple coin into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. And one of the most important aspects of the 1980 penny is that it was struck with the last fully consistent year of 95% copper planchets before the mint began transitioning production processes for upcoming changes. And because these planchets were produced in huge quantities, the chances for contamination, metal impurities, thickness inconsistencies, and machinery stress increased dramatically, which is why certain 1980 pennies show remarkable anomalies such as extreme die cracks that run across Lincoln's portrait like tree branches, sometimes even forming spectacular retained cut errors where a portion of the die breaks but remains partially attached, creating raised, bubbled metal formations that collectors love, and when these dramatic die breaks appear on a highly lustrous high-grade cent, they can command massive premiums. But the truly ultra-valuable $9 million level 1980 pennies come from even rarer categories such as double-struck coins where the penny was struck once, ejected improperly, then struck again at a different angle or off-center position, leaving duplicate outlines of Lincoln or the memorial building that create a visually stunning error. And another powerful category includes off-metal errors where a penny was struck on the wrong planchet, such as a foreign coin blank, a dime planchet, or a transitional metal composition left over from earlier experiments. And because the U.S. Mint occasionally produced foreign currency and various test coins in the late 1970s and early 1980s, it is entirely possible for a few experimental or misplaced planchets to have slipped into the penny production stream. And if such a coin surfaced today in pristine condition and was authenticated as a one-of-a-kind minting accident, collectors would pursue it with an intensity rarely seen, sending bidding into astronomical levels that easily push into the millions. And another ultra-valuable possibility is the existence of dramatic doubled dies, something the 1980 penny is known for in minor forms but which collectors still speculate may exist in extreme, dramatic, highly visible forms that have not yet been discovered publicly. And considering how many millions of 1980 pennies remain unsearched in jars, basements, boxes, old estates, and dusty containers, the possibility that a monumental double die obverse or double die reverse 1980 penny may still be out there is exciting, because if such a coin displays clear doubling on the date, the lettering or Lincoln's profile and appears in nearly flawless mint state red condition, it could instantly break valuation records for modern-era pennies. And what makes the 1980 penny even more fascinating is the presence of wide-ranging mint mark anomalies, especially the 1980 D pennies, which include RPMs, repunched mint marks, where the D appears doubled or shifted, creating desirable varieties that collectors actively seek. And while most RPMs are worth moderate amounts, a perfectly struck dramatic RPM combined with an early die state and exceptional surface quality could skyrocket in value, especially if it proves unique or extremely rare. And speaking of striking quality, the early die states of the 1980 penny include some spectacular coins with razor-sharp detail, strong memorial lines, crisp lettering, and brilliant luster that can appear nearly proof-like even though they were intended for circulation. And when such a specimen also contains a rare error or minting feature, the value multiplies beyond imagination. And another important factor behind the possibility of a $9 million valuation is the rumor-backed existence of extremely unusual 1980 pennies that feature full brockages, where one coin sticks to the die and transfers its mirror image design onto another planchet, creating a ghost-like inverted portrait or memorial building that fills the entire surface. And complete brockage errors are already rare, but a flawless, dramatic brockage from a pre-transition year like 1980 in perfect mint red condition would generate historic auction attention. And when you factor in the collectors who specialize exclusively in high-grade early 1980 cents, the competition becomes fierce, and the values can explode. And then we come to another category of errors that could create a multi-million-dollar phenomenon: transitional experimentation errors. Because while the major composition change officially occurred in 1982, the Mint often tested alternative metals and planchet materials years before major transitions. Meaning there is always a remote possibility that experimental zinc or planchets or other alloy prototypes exist from 1980, and if even a single authenticated 1980 penny produced on a test planchet ever surfaced, it would be one of the most significant modern coin discoveries in U.S. history, instantly pushing it into multi-million-dollar territory. And beyond composition, the 1980 penny also contains a wealth of mechanical striking errors such as off-center strikes ranging from slight misalignments to spectacular 90% off-centers missing huge sections of the design. And while off-center pennies exist in many years, the ones from 1980 with full dates visible are extremely desirable because collectors demand off-center coins that show the entire date. and a dramatic off-center strike combined with a rare die variety or mint mark anomaly could elevate the value enormously. And yet another fascinating aspect of the 1980 penny is the variety of struck-through errors, including coins struck through cloth, metal shavings, grease, plastic fragments, or other foreign materials that leave distinct textures, shapes, or depressions embedded into the coin surface. And because these errors can be visually spectacular and extremely unique, the most dramatic examples can sell for thousands, and when paired with pristine mint state preservation and strong market demand, values can climb even higher, contributing to the overall perception that some unique 1980 errors could realistically reach millions. And collectors also appreciate the unusual toning possibilities of 1980 copper cents because decades of environmental exposure can produce rainbow, violet, orange, blue, or multicolor iridescent patterns that dramatically increase eye appeal, and high-grade beautifully toned 1980 pennies with unusual strike characteristics or rare varieties can attract wealthy collectors who pay enormous premiums for visual perfection. And as if all these categories weren't enough, the greatest factor of all driving the legend of the ultra-valuable 1980 penny is the fact that so many remain unsearched, untouched, and unstudied across the country, meaning that new discoveries continue surfacing even today, including previously unknown die cracks, unusual die polishing marks, early die states, and minor doubled dies that were never catalogued before, and with each new discovery comes fresh speculation that a previously unknown major error, something dramatic, unique, and historically significant, could still be out there waiting to be found, and if such a spectacular piece were discovered, authenticated, graded at the highest levels and introduced at a world-class auction, its story, rarity, and uniqueness could easily push bidding into the multi-million-dollar range, with wealthy collectors competing for ownership of a once-in-history anomaly. And this potential for new discoveries, combined with the fascinating minting conditions of the era and the wide variety of possible era categories, is exactly why the 1980 penny under rare and extreme circumstances is discussed within the numismatic community as a coin capable of achieving legendary values as high as $9 million, proving once again that even the most ordinary-looking penny can become one of the greatest treasures in the world if it contains the perfect combination of rarity, mystery, condition, and minting anomalies that collectors crave more than anything. Next, 2009 D Birth and Early Childhood in Kentucky Lincoln Penny, a coin created as part of the special bicentennial Lincoln series celebrating the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. And while its standard face value is only 1 cent and its general collectible value is often modest at around $21 in certain conditions due to heavy production and wide circulation, there are special variations, rare errors, unexpected minting anomalies, and condition-based rarities that elevate this otherwise modern commemorative cent into something far more significant, and the story begins in 2009 when the Mint produced 4 unique reverse designs to honor different chapters of Lincoln's life, with the first design, the Birth and Early Childhood in Kentucky reverse, featuring a simple yet powerful image of a log cabin representing Lincoln's origins. And although millions of these coins were produced at the Denver Mint, the sheer number of operational challenges that year, including economic pressures, fluctuating metal demand, die preparation variability, and intense nationwide anticipation for the new designs, created the perfect environment for a wide range of minting errors and special varieties that collectors chase passionately today. And among the most desirable pieces are those struck with ultra-sharp early die states where the cabin lines, wood textures, log shadows, and field details appear crisp and flawless. And in mint state red condition, these early strikes already command premiums far above the average value. But what truly pushes certain 2009 D Birth and Early Childhood pennies into dramatically higher value categories are the rare error types, including double die reverses where the cabin lines or lettering show splitting or doubling under magnification. And while most 2009 double dies are minor, the possibility of stronger dramatic versions still drives collectors to check every detail. And then there are strike-through errors where pieces of debris, metal shavings, thread, or grease interfered with the strike, causing unusual depressions or shapes on the coin's surface. each of which can produce unique, one-of-a-kind specimens that collectors pay substantial premiums to own, and another category includes off-center strikes from 2009, which are particularly collectible when the design is significantly shifted yet the complete date remains visible. And because the special 2009 Lincoln Bicentennial Series is widely studied, any error that is visually dramatic becomes instantly desirable, especially when found in top-grade untouched condition. And then there are the rare satin-finished coins originally included in mint sets, which were produced using special dies and specially prepared planchets that give the coins a beautiful matte-like texture with far stronger detail than regular circulation strikes. And because many of these satin coins grade extremely high, collectors pursue perfect or near-perfect examples with intense enthusiasm, especially when the coin shows exceptional luster and sharpness. And beyond typical errors, there are even deeper layers of rarity tied to die deterioration where poorly maintained dies created weak, soft or distorted cabin lines, adding unusual characteristics that collectors catalog as sub-varieties, and although these variations do not usually reach extreme values, the highest grades combined with unusual surface features can push a coin far above its expected pricing. And another thing that makes the 2009 D birth and early childhood penny fascinating is the impact of post-mint storage and environmental conditions on the coin. Because copper-plated zinc cents are notorious for developing plating bubbles, small blisters and surface deformations due to reactive zinc expansion under the copper layer, and while some of these bubbles are environmental, others are true minting defects tied to planchet preparation errors, and the most dramatic mint origin plating. Blisters can bring strong collector interest, and when combined with a flawless obverse and reverse strike, the value can rise significantly. And then we have the role of toning, because some 2009 D pennies develop beautiful rainbow or multicolor toning due to long-term exposure to different environments, and when such toning appears naturally, gradually, and evenly across a high-grade coin, collectors often pay handsome premiums due to the aesthetic appeal. And in the world of modern coins, where millions are common and only a tiny sliver are exceptional, aesthetic perfection becomes a major driver of value. And all of this leads us back to the fact that while the typical 2009 D birth and early childhood penny carries a face value of just 1 cent and a standard collectible value of around $21 for premium uncirculated examples, the combination of rare errors, minting anomalies, unique strike conditions, exceptional preservation, eye-catching toning, and one-of-a-kind mechanical mistakes can produce specimens that collectors treasure far beyond their usual price bracket, turning this modern commemorative issue into a surprisingly exciting chapter of the Lincoln cent legacy. And because so many of these coins were saved in rolls, mint sets, bags, jars, and untouched hoards, new discoveries continue surfacing each year, reminding collectors that even the most modern coins can hold secrets, surprises, and unexpected pathways to serious value, making the 2009 D birth and early childhood in Kentucky penny yet another thrilling example of how simple pocket change can evolve into an object of fascination, obsession, and potential profit in the ever-expanding world of numismatics.